Hello friends, it's time once again to go through the comments that you've been leaving in the last month on the show. It's been an excellent month. There have been some really good, insightful, intelligent comments, including some people calling me out on stuff that I got wrong, which is great because it helps me improve the show. So, without further ado, let's dive right in. I did a video on the ethics of self-driving cars or autonomous vehicles, which I think I'm going to start putting in scare quotes now because, as we learned in that video, they're not really autonomous vehicles, they're just unsupervised vehicles. And in a rather grisly coincidence, between me filming and putting out that episode and filming this, a woman in Arizona was struck and killed by an unsupervised vehicle belonging to Uber, which they were road testing. At time of filming, I don't know whether there's going to be any kind of criminal proceedings brought against Uber, or whether it was just one of those tragic accidents that happens and would have happened even had a human driver been behind the wheel. So I think we'll all be watching that case very closely. Salman Shah predicted that manufacturers of unsupervised vehicles will probably program them in such a way as to avoid as many lawsuits as possible and thereby protect their profits. And yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you. If they weren't before, then I bet they are now, and not just Uber, but many others as well. I would say that I'm not sure that the programming that avoids the most lawsuits is necessarily the same thing as the most ethical programming. You know, I don't think those two are necessarily identical. There are plenty of things which are perfectly legal, but which are, like, wrong. And I think imagining the sort of ethical dilemmas that unsupervised vehicles might throw up could lead us to think about what kind of laws we want to have in place, like, before the massive rollout, rather than sort of encounter these dilemmas and then higgledy-piggledy try and work around them once they've already arrived. The Hunter x Hunter 2011 Dick Riding Association, great name by the way, said that in a no-win scenario, people should choose the option that does the least damage. And I would agree with you, and I think most other people would agree with you as well, but the devil is in how we interpret the meaning of the word damage there. Peter Wells brought up an ethical issue that I missed, which is the possibility of unsupervised vehicles being remotely controlled, and who has access to that and under what circumstances can they use that ability. Yeah, that's a great point. That didn't even occur to me. And you having said that made me think of something else as well, which is what happens to the data that journeying in an unsupervised vehicle generates. Who gets access to that? Because presumably, rather like a smartphone, an unsupervised vehicle will just end up being like a surveillance device which also has wheels. So who gets access to the user's data? Does the company retain it? What kind of privacy protections are in place? Presumably, in this case in Arizona, the data from that journey, that the fatal journey that the car made, needs to be handed over to the police, maybe? I don't know. Is the law in place to do that kind of thing? I'm not sure. Zidnaf dropped by, hello Zidnaf, and wondered about the possibility of some kind of equivalent to Uber but which is publicly owned and operated. Yeah, I think a few people in the UK my country the UK, are starting to think along similar lines, because Uber's license to operate in London is, I believe, currently in question. I think it's been retracted and they're appealing it. I think that's what the situation is at the moment. So yeah, a few people have started to wonder about whether there's some kind of like publicly run Uber that like properly negotiates with cab drivers' unions would be something good. I also did a video on the Ethiopian philosopher Zera Yacob and about how his ideas, I thought, prefigured a lot of the Enlightenment and came before, and he actually beat a lot of European Enlightenment philosophers to the punch. And on Twitter, the General Secretary of the Swordsman Society called me out and said that that video itself was Eurocentric, because I approached Yacob through the lens of the Enlightenment rather than engage with him on his own terms. I take that point. I think that's a fair point, and I think I could have done better there. I tried to break the Enlightenment myth a little bit by pointing out that it wasn't just a European thing and that Yacob actually beat them to it, but at the same time I guess I sort of reinforced it a little bit too. If I were to do the video over again, I think I would use more secondary sources. I would look at more other people and like how other writers of diverse backgrounds have interpreted Yacob, rather than go straight to the primary text myself as somebody with a lot of training in very Eurocentric philosophy and interpret it from that basis. So thank you for bringing me up on that one. I will try to do better going forward, and I think that's actually a very good point you've made. ContraPoints dropped by as well and said that she had never heard of Zera Yacob in all her years of doing academic philosophy. Yeah, Neither had I. I did philosophy uni for like 4 years and he was never mentioned. I just sort of stumbled across him randomly on the internet since leaving uni. But that's cool because that means that we can share him now together. And a lot of big YouTubers that I look up to watch this show, and that makes me think I should really make it better. Actually, that reminds me of quite a funny story. Some of you might know that I'm in a play at the moment. The play's about Jesus, which is also, by the way, why my beard is a little scraggly around the edges. I'm having to grow it out because I'm Jesus' understudy. And the actor playing Jesus, a guy called James, absolutely lovely. If you were to imagine white Jesus, like storybook, kids book white Jesus, you're probably picturing James. He's got the sort of long, spiraling hair and the beard, and he's very serene. And we were in rehearsal. He was Jesus. I was Pontius Pilate. We were kind of taking a bit of a break. And he just turned to me and says, "By the way, congratulations on your philosophy show. I've been greatly enjoying it." I freaked out because it's always weird when a flesh and blood person, especially somebody I know, like an actor in like my other life, says I've watched your show, because it feels odd that it really has an impact. I mean, I should know that it has an impact because it's got like 8 million views now, but that in a way that kind of feels like a number. Whereas when somebody in real life says, "Oh, I've seen it," I'm like, "Oh God, what did you think? Which one did you see? Which one did you watch?" But it's especially weird when the person saying that looks exactly like Jesus. Getting back to Zera Yacob, quite a few people were interested in reading his work, the Hatate, which I said is difficult to obtain in English, and they wondered where they could get it. I don't know where you could get a copy of that, but if you were to email me using the email address in the description, I definitely would not send you a PDF of it, because I'm pretty sure that would be copyright infringement. So yeah, definitely don't email me, and I definitely won't give you a PDF of it. I should charge. It should be like, it's £5 a pop. No, I won't. I'll give it to you for free. I mean, I won't give it to you for free. Oh, I won't give it to you at all. Ari Eisen pointed out that Yacob was not born in the kingdom of Aksum. He was actually born in the city of Aksum. They are two completely different things. I'm sorry, that's my bad. I misspoke. Thank you for pointing that out. Peter Smythe made a very clever move. I love this, right? So Yacob says that he thinks the optimum state of marriage is one man and one woman, because, he says, God created us roughly equal numbers of men and women, so, he says, we must have been created to arrange in pairs. And Peter said, actually, hang on a minute, even if we accept that God created roughly equal numbers of men and women, it doesn't follow from that pairs is necessarily the way to go, because you could have a polyamorous relationship as long as it had even numbers of men and women and it was itself an even number. So you could have a relationship of 6 people, 3 men, 3 women, and it would still fulfill all of Jacob's criteria. And I don't really have anything to add to that other than to say I thought it was really clever and I wanted to show everybody, so thank you, Peter. And finally, Rory O'Kane noticed that the font I used in my title cards for that episode is the same as the font from Black Panther. Yes, you have a very good eye. I had just seen Black Panther. I got back from the cinema and sat down and started editing that video, so I had it on the brain and thought, yeah, why not? Let's chuck it in. Those are all the comments I've got time for. Thanks for being so awesome on the last month of the show. Hopefully, next week, as you're watching this, I'll see some of you in Trafalgar Square for this play, where I'll be Pontius Pilate, and if anything happens to James, I'll be Jesus. So hopefully see some of you there, and without further ado, I will leave you with the credits. Patreon.com/philosophytube is where you can join these lovely names scrolling by right now. A huge thank you to all of the people who support the show and make it possible. You can also make a one-time donation at paypal.me/philosophytube.